Hello and welcome to Normal Earth Landscaping's look at controlling field ants. I'm Ben Carlson and we are going to dive right in. But before we do, a little bit about us. At Normal Earth, we empower farmers, ranchers, and gardeners in our community to foster collaborative thinking to further drive agronomy innovation. By providing passion, knowledge, and ethical farming methods, we help businesses grow organically and nurture a healthy, world-first mindset. So let's look at what we know about field ants. They're in the kingdom animal, the phylum Arthropod, and they are insects. They're in the order of Hymenoptera, and digging deeper, they sit in the family of Formicidae, and the genus is Formica, the species is SPP, and there are quite a few different types of field ants that we might find in North America. They inhabit every single bit of North America. You can find them absolutely everywhere. And what we're looking at now is what would happen if we find them in our yards or in our fields and they're causing trouble. So the size is 4 to 13 millimeters or 0.15 to a half inch. They can become quite large as they get older, and we're going to take a look at that in just a moment. They live primarily outdoors, but occasionally we do see them indoors as they're scouting for food. So the field ant colonies can live for up to 10 years, and they are prolific builders and diggers. They can live 3 to 4 feet below ground, and in colder climates they can actually dig below the frost line, which could be several feet, up to 10 feet. They live on live insects and dead insects, and they're attracted to the aphids' honeydew. So in the garden, as you see them hopping around on leaves, they are tending their garden of aphids. And so if we're looking to control ants that have become a problem, field ants can build 2 to 4 foot tall houses in your yard or in your field, and typically they don't provide any damage necessarily, but they can be unsightly. There's typically one queen, and she produces a host of sterile females who are her workers, and the males are drones who are sent out on tours and tasks within their habitat. So from an integrated pest management system, we're going to look at two things: monitoring and treatment program, or a method that we might use because we don't want to go after the ants if they're not actually being a problem. So depending on what we're looking at, if we're looking in high traffic areas, these could be commercial or residential areas, we're going to be out looking weekly. In lower trafficked areas, such as fields, we might be monitoring and scouting for those monthly. And again, like we do with many other pests, after a rain, the ants will come to the surface, they will take that moist soil, it's great building material, and they will start building mounds, those large 2 to 4 foot mounds. And some of the treatment that we'll be looking at is what we can do in higher traffic areas. So if we see just one active mound, we can broadcast on the turf and mound to treat that. We'll be looking at what chemicals and strategies we might have for treatment, but just for now we're looking at what our thresholds are. In higher trafficked areas, if we see no active mounds, but we know that we had past activity, we can go ahead and apply a broadcast treatment to help keep those pests away from our areas. Again, in high traffic areas, if we have no active mounds and no history, we revert back to our weekly monitoring and take no action. In lower traffic areas, we may see in fields up to 15 mounds an acre or more. So we can mound treat those active mounds and then broadcast treatment on the turf or field situation. Again, in low traffic areas, if we see less than 15 mounds per acre in a farm situation, we can spot treat those mounds. And ants can become a problem. They can move indoors into commercial or residential buildings. So if we find mounds within 10 feet of the building, and if we find just one, we can do a perimeter treatment of that building, as well as treat the mound. So let's look at how we might take those pheromones, and ants have trail pheromone So if one finds food, it leaves a chemical scent that the others can follow. And there are a couple of options. Some are better than others, and some are more attractive than others. Sugar, obviously, we know that ants love sugar. It's a great store of energy for them, and they are seeking that through their farming of aphid honeydew, which is a nice carbohydrate sugar chain, and that is one option, but it's not necessarily the best. They are attracted quite readily to boric acid and sodium borate, or a 5.4% borate solution, or broadcast dry material is actually very, very good to help bait ants. As well as ivermectin. It's a sweet smelling and very highly smelly pheromone simulator, and ibamectin and hydromethylamine are two other chemicals that attract ants. So I'm going to look at a natural way to create that solution, something that you can buy over the counter, they're readily available, but we can actually make a ant bait from home. So 5.4% is the ideal. Some go down to 1 or 2% that you can buy commercially over the counter at your local big box store. But if we're looking to make one at home, we can take 1 cup of water, or 240 milliliters, 5 milliliters of borax, or 1 teaspoon, mix those together into solution, and also mix in 1/4 cup of sugar. And into that liquid, we can then put 1/4 cup of white glue. You can add a little bit more glue for consistency if you need to, but that is a perfect ant bait / ant trap. Now, if you're looking to just bait the ants, then leave it as a solution, and you can place that on top of the mound. They will be attracted to the sugar solution that is mixed with the borax. They will take that back home, they will feed it to their queen, and hopefully we will have some control. Now, this method can take a number of weeks for them to distribute all of the borax back to their queen. It could take 5 or 6 weeks, and it also could be ineffective. So they're a very hardy group, and they are sometimes difficult to control. So let us take a little bit of time and talk about threat mitigation. So what is it that causes us to need to control field ants? Well, in a turf situation with their 2 to 4 foot mounds, they can destroy the aesthetics of a nice park, or baseball field, or our yards, and they can be quite destructive. So if they're mowed, they can become a hazard. Some people with field ants, because they're red and black, they can be sometimes mistaken for fire ants. However, they are painful when they do bite, but they don't have the same chemicals as a fire ant, but they will do a pinch bite to our people and our pets and our children. And they have one unique adaptation, and as they're drilling down and they're actually chewing on the woody parts of our herbaceous plants, and they're sucking away all of the nice carbohydrates and sugars from those plants, they release formic acid. And formic acid is highly toxic to herbaceous plants and can kill them from the ground up. And by the time you see a plant is withering and is dying, you may think that it might be some other option. It might be a virus, or it could be maybe a problem with your soil. If you're not scouting for those pests and you don't recognize that you have field ants that are eating your plant from the ground up, then it's almost too late. So we want to be out early in the season, especially when we're planting new plants. We know we have ant problems nearby, to be scouting for those, putting out bait traps, and looking for them. So some things we can do around the house. We would like to move all of the wood piles from alongside the house. If they are along the home's wall, move those away from that foundation. And some spring cleaning tips for everyone is to replace the weather stripping on your doors. You can put in door sweeps as well. Seal all of the cracks that you find one way to do that is to have a candle near the window, blow out the candle, see if any of the smoke goes through the windows or doors, and if there's a pressure differential, that smoke will travel through the doors, and then you have an opportunity to patch those up with caulking or weather stripping. And in our garden bed barriers, especially along the foundation, we can put a plastic edging or curb along the foundation, which helps to limit those ants from finding a way in. So let's look at some chemicals that we can use to control. Diatomaceous earth is a natural chemical that's used. It breaks up the lining of their bodies. Their exoskeletons will break down. They're basically tiny shards of glass. Other chemicals that are attractants and are also deadly to ants is spinosad, D-limonene. Limonene is found in lemons, as you might guess, and permethrin, which is a natural byproduct of our flowers. And permethrin is a very effective pesticide that is listed as organic. Let's talk about how we actually control these massive mounds. So in a pesticide application method, whether you're doing this at home or you've hired a company to come and do this, they will rake away the top of the mound down to the ground level. And we will take large metal rods, typically 3 to 5 feet long, and puncture those deep, up to 6 times, maybe more depending on the size of the mound, as deep into that mound as possible. They could be feet below the surface. And taking some of those controls, either a liquid solution of diatomaceous earth or spinosad or permethrin or limonene at a particular recommended dose, which will be on the bottles of those control measures, and we will pour those into the channels that we've made. Now, ants being builders don't like their habitat disturbed, so immediately they will go to work to build back all of their canals and channels and put their home back in order. So what we can do to expedite that process and that they don't move out of the mound is actually build their mound back. And it seems counterintuitive. You'd like to scatter it across the yard and be done with you. But that's not how ants work. Their mentality is not like ours. Those are some tips and tricks that you can use. And in summary, I'd like to tell you a little bit about us. At Normal Earth, we believe in giving 110%. By using ethical agronomy methods, we help communities grow organically and foster a world-first mindset. We thrive because of our knowledge and a great team behind our service. As our team often quotes, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. And again, thank you. Here's my contact information if you would like to reach out. And all of references that we've used are listed here, and they will be listed below. And again, to leave you with this, going natural doesn't have to have growing pains. Thank you, and have a good day.